Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matt and I'm here with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about Man of Steel, the criticisms against it, and why it's the best Superman movie by far. So grab your popcorn and Reese's Pieces and let's break it down on the Post-Credit Podcast.
You know, it just kind of seemed like, man, this is the start of something good.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, and before we get into like cast and stuff like that, we'll just say, you know, this was released in 2013, but they started creating it in 2008. And you know, you had just mentioned, you know, this is the start of something great. The filmmakers didn't mean for this to be like a shared universe DCEU or whatever, because they started making it in 2008, and that's when Iron Man came out. And Iron Man, they didn't have a plan really for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They released Iron Man, started having some successes with some of the superhero movies, and then built their universe. And so when they made Man of Steel, they weren't trying to set up a universe, right?
Yeah, but they sure. But you know what? I guarantee you the big wigs at Warner Brothers were probably looking at it like,
Yeah, because by this time there was only 5 Marvel movies out. There was Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, Thor, and Captain America: The First Avenger.
Right.
Captain America: The First Avenger and Iron Man were well, you know, Iron Man was a great movie. Captain America: The First Avenger was pretty good. Thor, Iron Man 2, and the Incredible Hulk were kind of like, you know, they were okay. I mean, I think I like Thor a lot more than the first Thor than a lot of people did, you know, because that was an impossible task. They did amazing. But getting back to this, there was only 5 movies, and you know, so they had a couple successes and everything, but they hadn't released Avengers yet. It hadn't gone that full blown, you know,
universe,
nerds and
yeah.
world people blowing their heads because all these heroes were going to be together. So.
Yeah, but hey, we got to throw something at Marvel here for that. But you know, they made it not planned a universe, but just, you know, at the ending of every single movie, they started tying everything in.
Yeah, they
from
started
the beginning.
They started.
I mean, we're talking about like from Iron Man tying in Thor already, you know.
There was a post credit in Iron Man where he was approached by Nick Fury, right?
Exactly.
And then in the Incredible Hulk, General was approached by Tony, you know, and so they already had an idea.
And on top of that, you got to admit that's genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. It's almost like they saw the future in that sense. But you know, I feel like DC said, okay, let's get on this train. You know, DC has been around forever.
I think they did that more with the next movie though.
Yeah.
Batman versus Superman. That's when they were kind of like, all right, let's get on this train, because Man of Steel has nothing that sets anything else up for the wide universe. This is all.
I mean,
just
besides Nick Fury,
Superman,
right?
story.
Besides Nick Fury and Shield, you know, but other than that, you know,
no, I'm talking about Superman.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, this Man of Steel was meant to be its own story with all just Superman characters and everything. And it wasn't until the next movie that they decided to add people.
But I mean, everybody, you know, even people that are not huge comic book fans or superhero fans or stuff, you know, everybody kind of was like, you know, they expected for them to create a universe, you know, because everybody was basing it off Marvel and said, okay, Marvel created a universe, we're going to see DC create a universe. And that's what they attempted, you know, and I think that they picked the perfect character, the perfect director and captain, like I said before, you know, to lead that ship. The only problem is there was some mess up there.
Yeah, you have a stylized comic universe. You need a stylized director for this, and that takes a big risk, though. I mean, because like we said, you know, it doesn't speak to a wide audience. You know, a general wide audience is sometimes kind of turned off by that highly stylized version, whereas Marvel is they got a formula going where everything is more palatable to the general audience, as far as you're not being heavy on CGI or style. Except for Thor, of course.
Now, let me ask you this. Who do you think made that possible? Who do you think was really the I mean, me personally, I think it's the writers. The writers are the ones that really, you know, you got to...
As far as Marvel, or...
Yeah, for Marvel, you got to take your hat off, because, I mean, you had different directors.
Who runs the universe in Marvel?
It's...
Kevin Feige.
That's right. The bald head, the bald guy.
Yeah, Kevin Feige. He
receding hairline.
You know, oh man, it'd be so nice if we could have like a Kevin Feige,
right,
kind of organizing everything. But it's all a test. Just because it worked for Marvel doesn't mean that DC could take the same thing and get the same success.
Even though half of Marvel characters are borrowed from DC characters.
Yeah, and it could be some kind of a fluke. An amazing fluke. I don't think it's a fluke because obviously they're 23 movies in, and generally most of them are amazing movies. But they found a formula that works for them. But that works for Marvel characters. It wouldn't necessarily work for these. Moving on here real quick. We got Henry Cavill, who plays Clark Kent, Kal-El. Amy Adams playing Lois Lane, Michael Shannon for General Zod, Diane Lane, Russell Crowe, Harry Lennox, Christopher Maloney, Kevin Costner are also in. Lawrence Fishburne.
Wait, you skipped over one.
Huh?
Did you skip over that other one because you couldn't say her name properly?
Oh, no. Oh, Faye Ora? Let me see. Oh, yeah. I guess I
Wait, I got to see how you say it. Let me see how you say it.
Do you know how to say it?
No, I don't, but I you're the one
you know what? It might be better if I just don't say it because I don't want to offend her.
No, that's what
she
I
played
thought you
Faye
did
Ora. I want to say it's Auntie Trow. I don't know. I'm going to butcher it. So, please, if you know how to pronounce it or whatever, send us an email, let us know. So anyways, we have we got some award winners here in this movie. You got Amy Adams, you got Michael Shannon, Diane Lane, Russell Crowe.
Well, let's go through. Let's start
Kevin
with that.
Costner.
Right.
Lawrence Fishburne. You got some award-winning casts here.
Well, let's start top of that list right there. Henry Cavill. How do you think he did?
I think he did really good as Superman. I think he had the dedication to it. When Christopher Reeve was getting ready to play Superman, he was a very gangly, very skinny type of tall, gangly, skinny actor, and he actually approached David Prowse, who played. I'll see if you know. Do you know who David Prowse is?
No.
David Prowse is the body actor for Darth Vader in all three original Star Wars, in A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. David Prowse was in the suit, so he was the bodybuilder.
That's right.
Christopher Reeve went to him to help build up some muscle, but they still had to pad his suit a little bit, and I think they padded it with Henry Cavill too. Even though they didn't need to, they just kind of wanted to make sure.
Well, no, remember what Zach said. He said that he wanted, same thing with Henry Cavill. They wanted to film him without his shirt off. Not my thing, obviously.
But because he had done so much work.
Yes.
He was like, we wanted to show off all the hard work that Henry, because he trained for 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's insane.
Yeah, well, Zack Snyder's even said he had a lot more respect for not that he had little respect for him, but he had a lot of extra respect for Henry Cavill and that's why he wanted to show too that it wasn't just the suit that made him look like that he actually Henry Cavill actually put as an actor actually put in the work. Yeah,
he trained in was it Jim Jones or something like that? I can't remember what it's called, but it's the same place that the people from the cast 300 did their training. They do training with military and all that kind of stuff as well.
Is it John Jones maybe?
No, because it had the word Jim, GYM, not JIM, but GYM and then Jim something or whatever. But that's aside the point. 6 months he was able to get this physique, and man, did he show it off.
Now, do you think he did well as because with these characters, especially superheroes, they always have an alter ego for the most part, right? Now, do you think that he played Superman as well as he did Clark, or do you think he was lacking one or the other? I have my own opinion on this.
Well, I'm going to get more into that in a little bit when we kind of start talking about the plot, but my answer now is this basically, and we're going to get into this as well, but this is basically a year one, Batman year one. This is basically a Superman year one. So he hadn't figured everything out yet. He was learning to become Superman. He was learning that he needed an identity. So right now he's just playing Clark. Right? He hasn't turned Clark into kind of an alter ego to hide his true self, which is Superman. And that's what Christopher Reeve did with the bumbling personality. He created a personality. I think he did good.
Which I don't think nobody did it better than Christopher Reeve as far as playing the role of Clark. I'm not saying Superman, but I am saying Clark.
He did good as Superman, but Clark,
he did.
I mean, he would hunch over. He wouldn't stand up straight. He'd kind of hunch over and put his shoulders forward. He had the glasses. He even parted his hair a different way, and he just turned into this bumbling person. And then you see that part in Superman 2 where he's standing there and he wants to tell Lois, and he just stands straight up and takes his glasses off. I mean, he just turns into Superman, and all he did was stand straight up and take his glasses off, and he was Superman. So I mean, I love that scene. Sorry if you guys hear this. I keep knocking stuff over in here, but if you see that scene, I don't, and I won't go through all of these one by one, but
I was just going with the main
man. Amy Adams, she did fine as Lois Lane. I didn't really hate her. I didn't love her. She did fine.
I personally think she could have been pushy more because in the comic books and all the other iterations of Lois, she's a very pushy person and very
outspoken, loud, brash,
and which I mean, Amy Adams. I'm again not denying
like Margot Kidder.
Yeah, Margot Kidder, perfectly. I mean, even in Smallville,
Yeah, and Amy Adams is very soft spoken, and just kind of I got you.
She had a little bit of it. She did have a little bit, especially with Perry White and everything else like that. She did have a little bit of that pushiness, but it of all the things that happened to her throughout all the stories, with Amy Adams, it's just kind of one thing after another hit her, and just kind of brought her down. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's kind of you kind of get why she wasn't as pushy, because she was just a lot of bad things happened to her, in her adult life at that point.
Yeah, and you guys are going to hear us say this a lot through this episode, but this is a different Superman for a different time. I was completely behind everybody else, all the naysayers at the beginning, saying that's not the Superman that I know and stuff. But the Superman that I was used to, I guess, or whatever, the classic, good old Boy Scout and everything. It doesn't work as well now. It does, but they have to do it differently, and that's what we're going to talk about. We can hit up the rest of these as we go on. The movie starts out with a scene in Krypton, where everything's going to hell, the world is ending. I think it's the best introduction we've seen to Krypton, to Superman's origins, all that. It was just action. If you're going to start out a Superman movie, this is how you want to start it off. You got to start it off with Krypton, showing where Superman came from in the Richard Donner movies, which I love so much, but they are dated. And those movies,
you also got to consider the quality of filming and the CGI effects and things like that.
Everybody's gotten better and everything.
Yeah, nowadays it's.
But I mean, they showed us in the Christopher Donner, they showed us a planet where everything was crystals. They ate crystals, wiped their butt with crystals, and all kinds of slept on crystals, and it was just all about that. I wanted to see a more substantial world with stakes and getting to know people, and you get, I think it's about 10 minutes. The first 10-15 minutes is this scene in Krypton, but within that 10-15 minutes you get Superman's origin. You get Zod's motivations and why he is and the way he is and what he's willing to do, the lengths that he's willing to go to. You get a sense of Jor-El's mindset, his views, his morality, and as well as Clark's mom, which isn't as important later on. But you get all this. You get why everything is happening, and it's done in such a way where it's just it blows you away, because I mean the music swells. You have the society who's used up all their resources, so they're flying animals around instead of spaceships. They can't do interstellar space travel anymore because they've just sucked out all their resources, and the only thing that Jor-El can do or has time to do is to build a ship that's big enough for the baby to send the baby away. And this is the
but I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I
you're
don't
fine.
mean to stop you, but I noticed you've said this before to me about the fact that he built a ship only big enough for his son, right? I truly believe, and just hearing the way that Russell Crowe talked, when because he's Jor-El, I mean the way he was talking and
the way he said it's too late for all of us.
Yes, and I feel like Jor-El was kind of at that point where he was like, okay, I know that I've been trying to change things, but I felt like
he's part of the problem.
He's part of the problem, and that he should suffer the same fate as everybody else on that planet.
And he speaks to that in the movie. I don't know if you remember, but when and we'll get to this part, but Clark gets to talk to a holographic representation of his biological father's real self in his Fortress of Solitude.
And he was bad. And the hologram wasn't saying, "Hey, you should forgive me. You shouldn't." I didn't do anything wrong. He grouped himself in with all Kryptons.
Well, yeah, and Clark at that time, his name was Clark, and he Kal-El was like, "Why didn't you come with me?" And Jor-El said, we were part of the problem because the entire race abandoned having kids and child rearing the natural way centuries before. So for the last few hundred or a few thousand years or whatever, all Kryptonians have been birthed through a lab type experiment where they've been fertilized and carried in these mechanical machines. There's been no natural childbirth, and the movie opens up with like a sonogram sound of a heart beating, and you see that Lara, Kal-El's mom, is actually having it natural. It's the first natural childbirth in centuries. And I like that because we've seen Zod and other people from Krypton come to Earth and mess around with Superman before, but you never got a sense of what makes Superman, what sets him aside from them, besides being raised on Earth. And I like the fact that all Kryptonians were created with a purpose, and that's all they know. And Superman gets to choose what he wants to do because he was naturally created. And naturally born.
And I don't think I've mentioned this to you before, as far as I was just thinking about this, but it's weird to see because in all the other films you don't really see Superman's mom really have any kind of personality or any kind of she's always just been Superman's mom, nothing else, but the way Zack Snyder brought both his mother and father, who were a team, and believed the same, and had each other's backs and that kind of thing. And it just kind of,
you're talking about Lara and Jor-El.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't really ever see that in another version of Superman, but it's just showing that they were the rebels of their society. And Jor-El, Jor-El took the hit, and Laura-El, I believe it is, took the hit, and instead of them going with Clark, which probably would have turned out pretty good, they were taking the blame for their whole society rather than saying, hey, Jor-El's been trying to fight against this for all the time. He's a rebel. You know?
Jor-El saw that the race had weaknesses that needed to be stamped out, and that was the point of sending Clark, and he was supposed to be the bridge. So then we get to the next part.
I just never thought about, the version of his parents that he portrayed in this movie. I mean, granted, we only got a slight glimpse of his mother, but his mother was such a strong-willed person. But she, it's almost, you see similarities between her and Lois. Just strong-willed women, got their husbands or their loved one, their spouse, whatever, they got their back, and they support each other. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of a weird thing to.
Well, yeah, they both saw the end coming,
but it's almost like how they say you marry your mother if you're a guy, and you marry your father if you're a girl.
I wonder if this society has like arranged marriages too. I mean, they it seems like they monitor every aspect of life, including child rearing. They could have arranged marriages.
I don't know.
The
society seems depressing as a whole. If you notice,
it does. I mean, it shows you what happens when you use up all your resources and are not smart about it.
And not only that, even their prison is just. It's horrible. It's literally like a heaven and hell situation if you think about it. I mean, the Phantom Zone is hell, where their society has reached a level of being almost angelic, in the way they do things, and again, I'm going back to the whole why Jor-El didn't go with him, because he felt guilty. He felt like he doesn't deserve any more happiness than his son is going to have.
Yeah.
And Because I noticed we say, oh, well, he didn't make the ship big enough, but, they could have made the ship bigger. They could have done something.
And I think I'd talked to you about this before, but, there's that novel, Last Son of Krypton, which, talks about the last days of Krypton. It has Jor-El and Zod as the main characters, and they were talking about kind of the same thing as this movie, where Krypton had abandoned any kind of interstellar space travel, and when Jor-El found out the world was going to blow up, all of the resources that he had and all the time that he has was something to build and something that was only big enough for one, and that was the baby. But getting into the next part, Superman Zod rebels against the government. Because he agrees with Jor-El, except that they go after it on two different fronts. He destroys the council. Him and Jor-El have a fight. He kills Jor-El, but not before they're able to launch the spacecraft. The baby heads to Earth, and the world blows up. Zod and his minions are sentenced to the Phantom Zone. They all get frozen or something, and then they get locked up in a ship which goes into the Phantom Zone, and they're imprisoned there. When the Krypton blows up, the prison opens up because they were keeping it together, but they're basically automatically released from their prison, and they see that their world's been destroyed. So Zod takes it upon himself to let's get up this technology, all the ships that we have in this area, and let's see what we can do about furthering our race. Because Zod's not, and we're going to talk about this more in a bit.
Well, no. I mean, I got to back up just a little bit on that because, Zod saw Jor-El send Kal-El off.
Right, and he was asking where.
So, Zod knows that Jor-El's probably the smartest person he knows.
And he knows that Kal-El is also a product of a natural childbirth, which he thinks is heresy, and he wants him destroyed.
And he also has the genetic coding from all of Kryptonians.
Right. So, there's this thing called the Codex. It doesn't really come up much in the future, but that's what Zod is looking for. He's looking for this Codex, and it's basically this thing that has the DNA or the structure of every Kryptonian. But
he's also looking for a world. Well, he's looking to recreate Krypton,
right?
And he knows that Jor-El's the smartest guy he knows, so he knows he's not going to send his son off to a random, planet with nobody that lives there, and he's going to send him off to probably a well-developed, a well-developed planet. You know what I mean? Pretty far along there. He's not going to send him to Mars with a bunch of the Martian the Manhunters.
Yeah. Oh, basically, and he doesn't know where he sends him, and he won't find out until later. But he's sent away, and then we get to basically where the ship crashes on Earth. It crashes on the Kent farm, and then as soon as it crashes, it flash forwards 33 years into the future to where Clark is all grown up. He's 33 years old. He's working on a boat and all this kind of stuff. He's trying to find his way in the world. He's left home a while ago and all that. But interspersed between us following Clark, who's actually walking, kind of doing a walkabout around the world, doing different things, trying to find out if he can find any way on this planet that shows him who he is, any kind of connection to where he's from, because he's found out he's an alien. So as it's doing that...
He seems quite depressed, too.
He is. As it's doing that, it flashes back to him as a child, kind of growing up on the Kent farm, getting used to being on this Earth, being different than everybody. He obviously knows he's different. He gets his X-ray powers. He saves a bus full of kids. He still doesn't know who he is, but after he saves the bus full of kids, he, people start to notice that he's a little different. And
remember he didn't even know he was an alien until
that's what and so people are starting to realize he's different. And now I when this first came out, I had two big problems with this movie that made it hard for me to like it, among other things that kind of nagged at me that I realize are stupid now. But I had two big main problems. This brings us to the first one, and it's a conversation after he saved a bus full of kids with Jonathan. He's like, what should I have, Jonathan's like, you gotta keep this part of you hidden. And he's like, what was I supposed to do, let him die? And Jonathan said, maybe. Now, I'm a fan of Smallville. You're a fan of Smallville. Yeah. We're used to that Clark and that Jonathan. That Jonathan is my favorite iteration of Jonathan Kent on screen, played by Jonathan Snyder. He reminds me a lot of our dad, and a lot of the values and all that. That Jonathan Kent probably wouldn't have told Clark that answer. He probably would. He wouldn't have said.
He probably wouldn't have. But,
maybe.
Right. But it also that particular John Snyder's way of acting and John Snyder's Mr. Kent in Smallville would not translate to a Zack Snyder type, because Zack Snyder will actually tend to be dark and moody. If you almost think about it, he might be actually better at directing Batman movies than anybody. The type of character, and that's what Jonathan Kent was. He cared basically about his own world, okay, and meaning his own world, meaning his family, his wife, and his son. And his farm. That's what he cared about. He didn't really. I'm not saying he didn't care about other people, but that was his closed off world.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's a dichotomy, or maybe not a dichotomy, but it's two sides of the same coin. Both these parents, Jor-El and Jonathan Kent, they both loved Kal-El, but they showed him in different ways. When Jor-El sent him away, Jor-El, it comes from a planet where they don't have natural childbirths. They probably don't have natural normal families like we do here on Earth or whatever. Everything's more galactic, more universal.
They're so advanced that they've even advanced feelings out.
Right. That's his way of thinking. He's like, okay, we got to do what's best for this race and the universe to further life in this universe, positivity, and all this kind of stuff.
Well, knowledge too. That's what in every iteration of Kryptonians, whether it be comic books or everything, they were always striving for knowledge. They wanted knowledge.
Yeah. So he has all these big ideals and everything, and then you go to Jonathan Kent, and all Jonathan is worried about is like, look, this is my son, and all I care about is the safety of my son. I love him. He loves us as humans do and all that, and he wants to protect him. So a lot of the issues that people had with that, this is a Jonathan Kent who is so, and I can understand now as a father, and as a father to a son, that you want to raise your son in a certain way, and that your son is going to have to take on bigger challenges than you ever did, maybe, or whatever. And he sees that this son that he has is going to change the world, is going to be a game changer out of all of human history. This one little boy that he is raising is going to change everything.
I say something? When you get a chance, let me.
Yeah, and so all he's worried about is making sure that he keeps the son that he loves safe, whereas Jor-El, he loves his son too, but when he sent him off, there wasn't there was some emotion and everything, but he's like, my hopes and dreams travel with you, meaning, I hope you do well with what you are meant to do, whereas Jonathan's like, you need to do what you want to do, and I got to protect my son.
And here's where you can match up the two, okay? Jonathan and Jor-El are totally two different characters, two different ideals. For the most part, they're both good people, but as a father, you want your kids to be like you, except for not making any of the same mistakes you made throughout life.
Right.
That you want them to be like you, because you want them to have the same ideals and the same opinions, and you want them to have their own opinions, but that's what the word raising them means, is by teaching them, what is right. Right. And that can be perfected throughout all of history and over every single aspect of your life. Now, here's the similarities there, with Jonathan and Jor-El. They both wanted Kal-El to grow up and basically be a beacon of hope and light, and that's what Superman means. That's what they not originally what his symbol meant.
Yeah, Jor-El and Jonathan both knew that he was going to change the world.
Right.
It wasn't as if Jonathan was trying to keep him buried for his whole life.
Right.
He knew that eventually he was going to have to step out and he was going to change the world. But he knew that Clark was not ready to be Superman. I'm not saying that he knew he was going to be called Superman, but he knew he was not ready for the role that Superman takes on, and he just wanted him to get there. And of course, I'm sure Jor-El felt the same way.
Well, and with Zack Snyder's version, which is unlike any other version out there. I personally believe. Not saying it's bad because I rather enjoyed it, but his idea of Jonathan Kent is almost opposite. Well, Jonathan Kent and Jor-El is almost the opposite of any way anybody else has ever done it. In this particular film, Jonathan Kent, and we're talking a lot about Jonathan Kent because me and Matthew, my brother here, we really, not saying we idolize Jonathan Kent, but Jonathan Kent is what made Superman Superman. And if you read any of the comic books, any of the movies, any of the shows, Jonathan Kent is, Jor-El provided the DNA, provided the skill and the natural ability,
the genes.
The genes. But Jonathan
nature
Kent,
versus nurture.
Right. And Jonathan Kent is what molded Clark to become Superman. Now, where this movie, it's kind of a little bit of the switching of the roles, because Jonathan Kent is very, secluded. He doesn't want his son to do. He basically wants his son to be just a lonely farmer and for now and live the rest of his life. And just the part alone with the tornado showed you that. The part with the tornado, with Jonathan Kent's end is showed you that even up to his death, he didn't want Clark to be known as Superman or to be, the hope of the world, the entire world. He wanted Clark to be, like him, a farmer, have a wife, raise some children, live out the rest of his life in peace. Where Jor-El wanted him to be the hope of the world and wanted him to do better than he did and his people did, and wanted to create a better world for his new people, where in all the other iterations,
he wanted him to create a whole new
absolutely
race. And we'll get to Jonathan's death right now, but ask you a question. What did you think of Russell Crowe as Jor-El and Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent? Now, we've talked about the differences between the two. What did you think about how they brought to those roles?
Because they made Jor-El, again, this is a different version of Jor-El and a different version of Jonathan Kent. They made Jor-El a warrior, where in every other iteration of Superman, he was an intellectual. He was not a warrior.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Of course.
So in the society of this Kryptonians, we kind of skipped past it, kind of mentioned it, but they are created in a lab instead of natural, but they're also predetermined on what they're going to be. So Zod, when he was created in a lab or whatever, they created him to have attributes and aspects of himself that will make him a great leader. So as far as, mental capacity, strength, learning things very, 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 very quickly, and mastering them. Whereas Jor-El was created to be a scientist. And so you have all these roles in society that are predetermined. And what I thought was funny is that Jor-El is a scientist, but they got somebody like Russell Crowe, who's like a real life boxer fighting around the world with Russell Crowe. If you've watched South Park, fighting around the world.
Yeah. Well, and he's got the muscles.
Right. But they picked him to be the scientist, and he's kicking all the soldiers' butts and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty funny. But maybe everybody in that
had his own armor and everything.
Yeah, and maybe everybody in that is in that world is taught to, defend themselves.
Right.
Way,
but the way that Zack Snyder did it and the writers did it, of course, that you could have found two better actors to play those roles. Okay, Russell Crowe, he does seem like a smart person in real life. But he also, again, he's got the muscles, and he has his raging moments in movies, and he beats people up and whatnot. And where Kevin Costner, there's a couple movies where he's kind of Billy Bad Butt, I guess you could say. But he's also plays that fatherly role so well, I think. And that's why I think they could pull it off. And personally, if they found somebody else for Russell Crowe's, Jor-El, okay. But I mean, to be honest with you, Kevin Costner was a perfect fit for that role.
Yeah, I think Jor-El, he did. Russell Crowe did a good job of projecting kind of that calmness of a scientist and everything. But you're right. There's always, because of who Russell Crowe is, and he's a good actor, I'm sure he can portray. But you always have this kind of thing in the back of your mind of him being a tough guy. And also, he, just seemed like that. He's willing to get into a fight and everything like that. And, he's doing what he has to because the world's ending. But it was very, very, you expect someone that's much more stoic, more quiet and reserved to be Jor-El.
Well,
somebody
look at the Donner films. You had
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Where Marlon Brando was he was kind of he was an action type actor, but he was very quiet and reserved type actor, unlike Russell Crowe.
Well, you mean he played quiet, reserved?
Yes. He was more the the.
He used to piss people off.
I know.
He
was nuts,
and he had cards. Instead of learning the script, he'd be like, "Just write them on cards. I'll read them and everything."
Yeah, but the actor, the type of acting he portrayed was more like Kevin Costner's acting on this film in particular. Now, I guarantee both of us could agree nobody could do Jonathan Kent justice like Snyder could, and
Kevin Costner. Everybody talks about it. That one part in the trailer that you saw, that's in the movie as well, when he says, "Can I keep pretending to be your son?" And Kevin Costner says, "You are my son," and his voice cracks, and you're just like, how do you not choke up at that? And especially thinking about the father-son relationship and everything that Jonathan wants to do for him.
And the age that they had Kevin Costner portray and Diane Lane portray.
What did you think of Diane Lane?
Perfect. I thought she was great.
I thought a lot of people were talking about how when she was young, it's like, okay, well, they got Marissa Tomei to play Aunt May in the new Spider-Man movie.
Which I'm not complaining about that. I'm going to throw that out there. I'm not complaining about it. And, she's one of those actresses that
some people do, though.
Get finer, they're like wine. They get finer with age, what I mean?
Yeah, and, and it makes sense because...
And Diane Lane's in that category, too. I personally believe for her age... She does not look bad for her age, as far as
I'm going to put a sign up that says "Stop banging."
Okay, well, hey, I'm trying to make my point.
No, I know.
Here.
No, and the ages, and a lot of people, and I have this here on my notes too. I like the effects that the age have on Superman, because back in the day, you had the older grandparent type ages,
like Lois and Clark.
Or Lois and Clark, or the original, Richard Donner Superman, all that kind of stuff. You had the older people, and it's good because those older people, they had the more old-fashioned values. Whereas today, you need kind of the younger ones to connect with an audience, teaching him these the values of today or whatever. And we're used to it from having a young couple in Smallville being his parents. And
not only that, here's most things too, is that. With Martha Kent, okay, she seems to always live through everything. Like in every type of
so
Superman.
Does Aunt May too.
This is true, but what I'm saying is, she's always alive, but she is
poor
not.
Batman. He's got no parents that stay alive. Wah, wah, wah. Well, Alfred, I guess. Now go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Why'd you say that name?
But it's funny because she's not really. Martha Kent is not really a. She's not really a teacher, or she doesn't really teach him or teach him any kind of lessons throughout his life, or known for that in any kind of adaptation of Superman. She's always just been the one that lives, and where Jonathan Kent is the one that always dies. But that's for good reason.
Yeah. Well, we get to this part where of course, it's flashing back, showing what he did when he was growing up, all the things he had to learn. Finds out he's an alien. He eventually finds a spaceship that the military.
But you got to admit, he probably always knew he was not from the same planet.
Well, he probably knew there was something going on, because he even asked Jonathan. He's like, "Did God do this to me?" And that's when Jonathan showed him the ship, and is like, "Okay, well, you're not human." And all that, but it gets to this. He finally finds this ship in the Arctic, flies it away from the military, gets it away from them. We'll go back to that in just a second. But I just wanted to say that this whole
Wait. We can't skip over that one little bit of tidbit of information you just said. He just flies it away. Now we've got to talk. Since you brought it up, we've got to talk about his Fortress of Solitude, or lack thereof.
Yeah, so they find a ship that's been there 10,000 years ago. Somebody in Clark's lineage thousands of years ago got in that ship, so that's why there is a suit on that ship.
Well, it seems like all of them are related with the
symbol.
last name L.
Something like that. But, you have him find this ship. He finds Lois in it. drops her off and then takes off with the ship. In that scene, we have our first Smallville alum. Well, besides Amy Adams. For those of you who don't know, obviously we've been talking about Smallville and how big of fans we are of Smallville. Smallville is a show about Clark Kent. Starts in his freshman year of high school, and he's getting his powers and basically learning how to deal with his powers. The whole show has to do with him learning about his powers before he becomes Superman.
Literally only puts on the suit on the very last scene of the very last season of the very last episode.
Right. No flights, no tights was the motto of that show.
Which for us being big comic book fans, especially my brother being a huge Superman fan, is very different and very weird for both of us to like Smallville as much as we do, but it was just such a well done show, which we're going to definitely have an episode over Smallville alone, and it might be a long one.
Yeah, it's a well done show, and I think for me it was like I was watching it during a certain point in my life, and it brought me comfort and everything. So that kind of stuck with me. Amy Adams, who plays Lois Lane in this, she did play in Smallville. She, if those of you who watch X-Files, you have the Monster of the Week episodes. In Smallville, it was called Freak of the Week because they were called what were they called? Meteor Freaks.
Wait, who named him that? Was the
person who's going away for sex trafficking and slave and
Jeez Louise, who would have thought that?
Yeah, there's a character on Smallville called Chloe, and
Allison Mack.
She's played by Allison Mack, who is now she's
sitting in jail right now.
Sitting in jail. She's waiting for. I think she's waiting to find out what the charges are gonna. If she's gonna go away for a long time. She was part of a sex trafficking group. Anyways, Amy Adams, who plays Lois Lane in this, she was one of the Freak of the Week people on that show. She played somebody who got poisoned by some kryptonite with some kind of a lose weight drink, and so she started eating people. She'd lost a lot of weight, but it made her really hungry. So it was very weird. But
she only ate bad people, and you know, at the end, everything worked out for her well, even though she is known for eating a human being, no less.
Right. And what's that? What was the doctor's name in
Hamill, or it was Dr.
It's Emil Hamilton.
There we go.
So that's played by Richard Schiff in this movie. But right next to him in this first scene that we see him is a guy that was also on Smallville. It's a guy his name is Alessandro Giuliani, and he plays a kind of like a tech guy that's watching the screens. But he actually played Emil Hamilton in Smallville as well. So he's also in this scene. And then there's another scene later on where a soldier, he's the first one to say Superman. He also was in Smallville as well, another kind of Freak of the Week type thing. So we got a lot of Smallville alumni in this.
And that guy, he doesn't. If you
Which
look
guy?
At that played Hamilton,
Alessandro,
Lennox,
yeah.
or was it?
Are you talking about in Smallville?
Yeah. Well, in Smallville and this movie, he didn't. I mean, you look at him back then. I mean, what year was that? Probably like early 2000s.
It was season 9, I believe.
Okay,
and so season 9 would be 2008, 2009.
Yeah, but I mean, look at him now. And look at him back then. I mean, he's one of those people that he's got the Paul Rudd disease where he just doesn't age. He doesn't seem like he ages because he looks exactly the same.
Yeah, that's true. So we get to this part. Clark takes the ship and takes it to another part. Somewhere in Antarctica. There's a polar bear nearby, but that becomes his new fortress of solitude. And then he begins to talk to his dad, who put his consciousness in this key that he gave to Clark, and that's how Clark is powering that ship. So he has a conversation with it, and this is where we kind of really break down what the what the movie is about. And the issue with Superman nowadays is, how do you have a conflict with perfection? You basically look at Superman and he's perfect in every way. He's got perfect looks, chiseled jaw. He's very overpowered. The only thing that used to be said, the only thing that Superman can't do is the things that he hasn't tried yet. When he first started out, he could jump over a building. He couldn't fly. He could just jump over a building.
He still can't beat Flash in a race. I'm just gonna let you know.
Yeah. So he could jump over a building. He was faster than a bullet and more powerful than a train. But that was really it. That was his limits and everything. Over the years, he's gained other things.
Which I don't want to overlook that because, back then, again, nowadays, you're seeing actual human beings in real life doing some crazy stuff and being able to do some crazy things. Back then, that was probably, to them, Superman wasn't overpowered, I'm sure. I mean it was like, he could just jump really high. He could.
But now you have a universe of hundreds and thousands of superheroes now.
Where he can literally break the world in half now. Or go back in time like in the Richard Donner films.
I think he's bench pressed his planet and all those kind of different things. But So I think that Superman is more interesting than Batman, and that's because Batman, he lost his parents, a very tragic situation. Couldn't imagine going through that, but people have gone through that and have gone on to lead normal lives. That event turned Bruce Wayne into a psychopath. He was
definition of mental disease.
All he could focus on for the rest of his life was this thing. It's like, you kind of want to be like, dude, I love Batman and everything, but you got to get over it, man. It's like the horrible thing that happened, but it happens to people all the time, and they get, they're able to recover from it and all that. But, this is the most extreme because we're talking about comic books. Nobody's gone through what Superman's gone through. Imagine having your entire race eradicated and you being on a foreign planet with somebody else, figuring out how you can fit in. And if you tried to fit in, they might just very well say, get off our planet. We don't want you. And then where would you go? So it's this guy who's trying to integrate into this race of people that he can see. And then maybe it's because of his raising by the Kents, but he gets out there in the world and he's like, this is the race. He sees the ugly sides of humanity, and he questions whether or not he even wants to be a part of it. We can get back into this. What I liked about this movie was that conflict of perfection that Superman has, that he cannot be beat by anybody. He has a silly weakness, but that weakness isn't even in this movie. There's no such thing as kryptonite in this first movie. So basically, he's an invincible person. And how do you have conflict with that? And that's what I like about this. It's this guy who's on this walkabout, and he's trying to find his place. And he finally gets his ship. He talks to his dad, and his dad explains everything to him. He explains that you're going to be the bridge between Kryptonians and humans. You're going to create your own race, and you're going to lead them, taking the mistakes of Krypton, taking the mistakes of Earth, and combining them and creating a race that rises above those mistakes. And he said, they will stumble behind you, they will fall, but eventually they will join you in the sun. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to be trying to attack him because he's different or whatever, or if it's just because they're going to be making mistakes, but they will eventually take his example and become a better race.
I feel like it's bigger than that even. I mean, because again, the Kryptonians were such an advanced race. They knew about, the race of Green Lanterns. They knew about Martian the
Maybe
Manhunters.
We don't know how far.
No, because that's.
But I'm talking about in the Man of Steel universe. Like, how far did Kryptonians actually explore? What do they know? They might know Green Lanterns. They might know the Marvin the Martian.
Right,
Marvin the Martian.
Marvin the Martian. I do that all the time.
Come here, buddy.
This is my point here with. I feel like it's bigger because, again, they went from Krypton to the Earth. They had visited Earth about that. Jor-El knew that they had visited Earth.
Right.
So you can't go that far and not run into some other race.
But remember what we said. They hadn't built this universe. Remember, right in this movie, and we're just talking about Man of Steel, this iteration, before they knew that it was connected to Justice League and all the Wonder Woman and Green Lanterns, it was just about Superman.
Right. But where I think the universe is bigger, even just say you take out all that other stuff, but you still include the Kryptonians. Okay. Where I think it's bigger is that his dad knew that,
his dad, which dad?
Jor-El knew that he is not alone in the universe as far as of the vastness and the many, cultures and creatures in the universe. I felt like he knew that the universe was so much bigger, and that's why he sent him to Earth, to protect Earth and to protect Earth, make it safe. But safe from what? Not from themselves, because that was more
themselves. Though.
No, I think that was more Jonathan's.
Well, he knew how humans could be and how humans would react to something like him. It'd be
right.
Stoned.
But that's what I'm saying.
Square.
Saying, I feel like Jor-El wasn't trying to get him to save humans from themselves, but basically save humans as a whole from anything that might be indefensible. Like he's a shining bright light of hope.
Jor-El even told him, you'll be the bridge and you will create your own race.
Right.
Between humans and Kryptonians.
Absolutely. And I just feel like it's so much bigger than that because, when you think about it, Superman was the original superhero, and I feel like, there, we as podcasters and movie lovers, we tend to think more in 4D than 2D or 3D, or 3D, whatever. We like to think more into it and to think maybe, hey, because, the directors aren't going to be like, okay, oh, this is a script. Okay. Line 1, line 2, line 3, this happens, okay, we're good to go. We feel like, and I know you feel this way too, but we feel like every director puts a little bit of their taste to it. That most of these directors will go and read comic books and enter that into their production. And I feel like Zack Snyder, because from what I hear, Zack Snyder is a fan of comic books in general.
He's a big fan of Superman too.
Yeah. And so, what better person to get to direct that? And you got to kind of think deeper into it. Now, if you're listening to our podcast, then you probably feel the same way. But if you're not listening to our podcast, then you're just one of those what do I like to call them? The mouth breeding, not mouth breeders so much as popcorn eaters.
Popcorn eaters is the best one. Just go in there to be entertained, and that's fine.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
There are movies that maybe I don't get as into as other people, but I just want to be entertained. Real quick. The learning after this scene, when he talks to his dad, he puts on a suit, shaves his beard, I guess with his fingernails or something, or some kind of Kryptonian razor blade
off the mirror.
Well, I think they have it in the comic books where he actually shaves with his fingernails or something. Anyways, he gets in a suit and he learns to fly. Now, this scene is amazing because we haven't really gotten to see this because in the Christopher Reeve Superman, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and he talks to his father. He gets a suit, and it's real like it's a faraway shot. Suddenly he's in the suit, and then he flies away. There's no gravitas to it. It's like something like that, and especially even though he's a Kryptonian, he's grown up in a human world, has only known human things. He doesn't know that flight is possible.
No.
He knows he can jump real high, but that's why he's like, you have to test your limits. You have to push past your limits to see what your limits are.
Right.
So you see him jump, and he's at the peak of his jump, and he pushes, and he even goes further. And I love that it kind of shows the technicality of it.
Yeah, and the science behind it. I mean, if you look at it, even the rocks, it's almost like he's got about a 2 or 3 inch bubble surrounding his body, and then even the rocks that are in that bubble seem to almost defy gravity.
Yeah, it raises up with him or something.
Which is
same thing happens with Zod later on.
It's a great way to do it. I mean, like in Smallville, they started to get to that point. I feel like because he was jumping, and then he just found out that if he jumps high enough, he stays up.
And they did cheat a few times in Smallville and had his body was taken over by the bad version of him, and
he could
flew
fly
all
of a sudden.
Yeah, so that they did cheat and everything. But we haven't really seen a Superman learning to fly or any superhero learning to fly scene as exciting as this one. I mean, you got Iron Man when he first put on his suit and he said, "Screw it, I'm flying," and he just he tried to beat the SR-71 in the height and everything. As high as he can fly. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have Superman, this person who's flying with a cape, this iconic person. How you can't get more exciting than that. I mean,
and if you think about it too, it's really the only superhero adaptation to movie that we have seen that literally flies with no assistance. Like Thor flies but with the hammer. Iron Man flies with science.
Shazam.
Shazam, but Shazam kind of was, it's obviously after Man of Steel, and pretty much it's after all these other Superman. But even Shazam, it doesn't, he kind of seems like he's just floating kind of thing like that. But,
the epicness
of it, we have not seen that
Zack
on
Snyder
film.
is the man to show the epicness of it. And I'll take this time to then talk about Hans Zimmer. Probably my favorite composer, aside from John Williams, who's composed some of my favorites and many favorites. But Hans Zimmer, he just you almost cannot beat him as a composer. And the work that he did on this, you hear kind of tones of what he did with the Dark Knight trilogy and the drums and stuff. The main theme for Superman, he's this big, strong, powerful guy that usually punches his opponents and stuff. And so you got these big beating drums and everything, but the sweeping music It's even got a choir in the background of this, and I'm playing it in my head right now.
It really brings me back to the original, Star Wars movies where
it shows them flying all over the planet too. I know, that's awesome.
It brings you back, and it's people. I don't think, again, because we get popcorn eaters, and I think that'll be our new term, right? Instead of mouth breathers, we'll call them popcorn eaters, and that's just the people that love to enjoy a movie, but again, we don't knock them for it. Yeah, we don't knock them for it either. I mean, if that's what you wanted to watch movies, fine, and you're probably not listening to us right now. But that's it brings me back to the Star Wars, or even Indiana Jones, even. I mean, you listen, the soundtrack it gets you pumped, and then you throw in great visuals from Zack Snyder that it just. It's enjoyment. It's like a snack for your brain, And you
really can tell, and Henry Cavill does a good job of like he has this look on his face in some parts where he's just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like he's so amazed, and it's cool to see that in Superman. Like when you have Christopher Reeves or whatever, every time he's flying around, he's doing it like it's no big deal and everything. But this is a guy who's lived his whole life on Earth, never thought this was possible, experiencing this. And you got to show that. You got to show those cool things for Superman. Like we said, this is like Superman year one. This is before he becomes the Superman that we all know, who's full of confidence, knows what he's doing. He's experiencing all this for the first time, and I love that we got to see that.
Have you? Here's another good point too that I don't know if you've noticed. I mean, it's kind of going in on what you just talked about, but have we ever really seen an angry Superman, like a pure, like looking at his eyes? Pure rage. I mean, Smallville, yes. Maybe different colors, rings and things like that. But
yes, we have actually.
Who?
When in Christopher Reeve in the very first Superman, when Lois died.
Yes,
and a lot of it was like sadness because she had died, but I have to imagine a lot of it was anger at Lex for what he had done and everything. Right. And he just screamed so loud that he decided to turn time back.
Yeah, but okay, that's anger. But I'm talking about like. Especially at the end of the movie, but we won't talk about that just yet. But you see
real emotions, human emotions,
pure rage coming from Superman. Like Superman gets angry. I mean, comic books and everything.
When do you see pure rage?
When especially near the end,
right?
Was odd. But
you're talking about in general. With, when he's like, yeah, you think you can. Threaten my mother.
Yeah. And also too, I mean, when he's fighting the Kryptonians, it's a lot of times we see these movies and it's a cocky Superman where he's just batting them away and stuff like that. But when he's fighting the Kryptonians, Snyder showed a lot of different emotions coming from Superman, and that you normally do not see Superman, especially in the comic books. I mean, a lot of it he's just blank faced, no emotion. I mean, he might throw a smile every once in a while, but I mean, you don't see any pure emotion coming from it. Where Zack Snyder showed. Through Henry Cavill, that pure emotions of different sides of it. And I mean, and also, fighting against the Kryptonians, he was getting spanked there for a while, Well,
let's get into that then. Let's get into that. The Kryptonians, so we can talk about it. Right after this, right after he flies and everything, then we have a scene where he's at he's at his farmhouse. Lois and their people are at the Daily Planet. You got people all over the world. You got the generals in their little ready rooms and stuff. And then suddenly all the lights go out around the world, and this broadcast is being broadcast on every video feed. That I really love this because what. In the original Superman, the Christopher Reeve Superman, he's Superman. He saves Lois in the helicopter, and everybody's like, yeah, and they're all rooting for him. And they're like, that's cool. That's not how humans react. We would be scared as hell. We'd be like, what is this going on? I don't care who he's saving. Who is this that's doing? That's explored more with Batman. It's like, this is too much power. So what this story ends up being is a first contact story, which is what, oh God, who wrote it? What's his name? Zack Snyder directed it. It's he had done Blade and some other movies. What was it? Oh, David Goyer. That's his name.
Yeah.
He had done Blade, a few others, but he wrote. He had even said, this is supposed to be a first contact story, which I absolutely love because. They have a little creepiness of it,
I didn't like it.
The sound in the farmhouse and everything like that. And he even calls out Kal-El, and I just kind of gives me chills because then you get Martha looking at him like, oh gosh, This is an event, a world event, the most important event in human history, and that's what it would be if the world found out about Superman, especially if there was no other superheroes, which there wasn't before this happened. And so it shows us a first contact. It shows us first contact with Zod first. First he threatens the world, and then they're like, oh, there's somebody already here. The reaction to that. Do we sell him out? Do we give him up? Or what, what should we do? It kind of mirrors some of the talking points and political points nowadays. What do you do with a refugee? Finally, and Superman then also has a conundrum where he's like, should I give myself up? He even tells that preacher or whatever, I just don't know if the human race can be trusted. And that guy said, sometimes you just have to take you have to take a leap of faith.
Now, I kind of liked where they did what they did there with him talking to the preacher. It's a lot of people will reference Superman saying he's
Jesus
almost
allegory.
like a Jesus allegory, but I liked what Snyder did.
He literally
with the
had
priest.
Jesus over his shoulder
Yes.
in that scene. Kind of the same thing like, should I give myself up for mankind? Which is the question that Jesus
And
had
it's
to go
not
through.
even so much, that's partial in it, but I liked what he did was you've got this godly being, okay, remember this is fiction, obviously, but you've got this godly being that is getting advice, lowercase g, that's getting advice from a pastor in a church that probably has maybe a total of 30 to 20 people, maybe every Sunday showing up at his
church he went to when he was younger.
Right.
Because that's obviously Smallville. Guy.
Yes, correct. But this godly person getting advice from a pastor who is, physically, everything else is not in his category, I mean, but just, almost like acknowledging the comparison that, obviously, Schuster and the other guy, Siegel, really
those are the creators for Superman, if you guys don't know.
And by the way, they were not even 18 when they created him. So there's that. But the fact that they obviously they got a little bit of when they were creating Superman, they took a little bit from that, even though they were Jewish, mind you, but they took a little bit from that, and the fact that he got with a pastor, which I don't remember any adaptations of Superman doing that, actually, incorporating church or, not even religion or even so much the Bible or nothing like that. It was almost like talking to a counselor, like he knew something that Clark didn't know or that wouldn't know. Superman goes to him for advice,
And they talk about that sacrifice. I mean, like Jesus is a sacrifice. They talk about the sacrifice in there. And Clark or Kal-El or Superman, whatever you want to call him, he exemplifies that. He turns himself in. He allows himself to be taken by the Kryptonians. And then afterwards, when they fight, he puts himself in front of the humans, saving humans in Smallville, trying to fight them in Metropolis and everything. And he inspires others. He inspires Emil Hamilton to sacrifice himself. Yeah. He inspires that was it a corporal? Not a corporal.
General?
No. The guy that Christopher Maloney from the Law and Order or whatever played.
Oh, yeah.
Colonel.
Yes.
Yeah, he inspires that colonel to make a sacrifice. He even inspires Perry White. And maybe not inspires, but I mean, you have all these people that are now, after Superman's made that sacrifice, they're trying to make these sacrifices too. So he has inspired the world, and he does have those people stumbling behind him and trying to follow him, like Jor-El said that they would.
Well, hey, you want to hear a little bit of, I was looking it up, and I don't know if there's truth to this, but when they bring out the Snyder cut, you're supposed to see
of Justice League.
Yeah, you're supposed to see Darkseid, you're supposed to see Green Lantern, and then even Marvin the Martian. But
you said it too.
Oh, gosh, I did, didn't I?
The Martian
the Manhunter, and I mean, but from what I'm hearing is, and this is a little bit of maybe behind the fact, but Harry Lennox, who
plays General Swanwick.
Yeah.
Swanwick.
They're saying he is Martian the Manhunter.
I've heard that theory before.
And that Superman was looking right at him through the mirror, and everybody else backed up except
see
for the
that
general.
glow, yeah.
Sat right there. Now, if they're just trying to portray, the strongness of that general, then
Because they did the same thing in the Supergirl TV show. They had that
Yes.
general guy there that was there, African American, just like Martian Manhunter
Yep.
is in the
Oh,
comics
yep.
and stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, so
And if you notice that when they had the fire in Man of Steel, he was nowhere to be found. That general was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a little, that might be just a theory, but if that played out,
it's a good theory. I
would
like it.
love that if that played out.
I'd accept it.
Yeah.
And so from here on out, as soon as the aliens come and they have the first contact, and Superman's taking, from here on out, it's nothing but just action and chaos,
action,
and
adrenaline.
and everything that a Superman movie should be. A lot of people complained about the destruction and the overabundance of action. And it's like, well, it was like a complete 180 from Superman Returns, which is kind of a snooze fest, bore fest. Like, I get what they were trying to do. I get what Bryan Singer was trying to do in that movie. It just does not work. You know, and especially like now, like the action of the original Richard Donner Supermans. It doesn't really hold up that well today.
Yeah, and those Kryptonians, they sure did control their powers pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Are you talking about? Oh yeah, the Richard Donner one.
Yeah, even though since a baby. No, I'm talking about in this one too.
This one.
They gain control of their powers so quickly.
But that's what I was talking about earlier when Zod was created to be that person that can adapt quickly and overcome and learn things.
I'll give you that.
So I think that was. Because he even said, he's like, where did you learn? I've spent my whole life conditioning my body to be able to, learn these things. Where did you train? On a farm?
Yeah. For 33 years, he's absorbed that yellow sun, which if whoever doesn't know, which I'm pretty sure all y'all know, but that's where Superman gets, or Kryptonians get their power from, is the yellow sun, not the red sun, but the yellow sun. And it's just it kind of will drive me a little crazy, but at the same time, what you just said really makes sense to because again, him being bred like the way he was, I'm sure he was bred to adapt to any situation that came up, and therefore probably quicker
to be a fighter,
right?
All that,
But you can almost think that you can adapt to the powers, but will you be as powerful as somebody that has lived under that yellow sun for so long and absorbed so many of its rays? Because that's the basis of his power.
Yeah.
You almost want to think, Superman's got to be stronger. He's got to be faster. He's got to be, all his vision, laser vision, all that other stuff should be stronger than Zod's or anybody else's.
Right. And you think about it, Kryptonians are powerful. They're the soldiers. They're powerful because they were trained to be that way. But they are limited. They are limited to their genetics and how their genetics were created in a lab. Whereas Superman, it's all natural. He's not limited. He can expand. And that brings us to the last point that we have, which is the destruction and the consequences of that destruction of Metropolis. Now, this was a huge point of contention when the movie came out. What are your thoughts on the overabundance of destruction in Metropolis?
I would like to see more medals given out to people that are cleaning up the destruction that these heroes are creating. And, I feel like they don't get enough acknowledgement.
And they did in the next movie. I don't know if that was just a response to the complaints people had in the first one, or they had planned to talk about. But, the next movie is then all about, like I said, it's a think piece about the consequences of having someone like this here. And, that all goes off, on the destruction of what happened that day. You got to...
Here's the thing. I know that we don't see it until the next movie, till BVS, but you've got to realize that, yes, Clark saved the world, but the reason Zod was there is because
of Clark,
or, Superman, whatever. He was there because of Superman.
Turned on that ship,
which, you kind of really don't want, humans really kind of dwelling in there, because that's how you create Lex Luthor, So in turn, you're either creating a very smart, very Lex Luthor, a scarier Lex Luthor that has access to alien technology, which, as we know in Batman versus Superman, he got a hold of it anyways.
Yep.
But, you got to look at the impact of what it created, during that destruction. Yes, he stopped Zod, killed. There probably a million people probably lost their lives during that battle.
Well, maybe thousands, like tens of thousands,
and millions of dollars, billions of dollars of destruction, and then you create a hatred from Batman towards Superman, which again it doesn't affect until the following, till BVS. But then again, you see the spider web of repercussions from this battle. Yes, again, he did stop Zod. Nobody else probably could have stopped Zod, not even Batman, okay? Superman is literally the only person that could have stopped Zod. But, it created a spider web of events after the fact. And, I think even Superman acknowledges that through BVS. But, there's a lot of deep meaning in there, what happened. You see, Perry White barely escaping. You see Lois, trying to help Superman throughout the whole battle, which, personally,
I was glad she had something to do.
She did, but she got in the way.
She got in there. She did. And he had to save her a couple of times.
And his mother too,
Yeah, but I mean, you can't have a love interest running around and not be in trouble every once in a while, especially if you don't have powers.
One named Lois Lane who tends to get into nonsense constantly.
My thoughts are you need destruction. A scale this big, you got Superman. You got to have a villain that's strong enough to contend with him.
Yeah.
And you had the destruction of Smallville and the destruction of Metropolis and everything. You have to have that in a Superman movie. I mean, this is a world invasion.
Well, it shows the epicness of the film.
I mean, had Superman not done what he did, the entire world would have been destroyed, and not just Metropolis. So, obviously, people can say, well, blame the Kryptonians. They're the ones that did it. Superman could have, we've seen, I had a problem with it a little bit because we've seen in the past that Superman cares just as much about, well, I mean, not just as much, but he cares a lot about property damage as well and tries to save, a lot of the property damage if he can. This one was just an all-out destruction. I mean, you sit there, for a good, 30 minutes, you're just watching building after building fall and just smash. And, you're just watching destruction rain down. I don't think we needed as much as we got. But I think, you need to have some kind of an impact. And then they addressed it in the next movie, so I'm not too upset.
Yeah, but again, if you look at, for instance, look at 300. There was so much destruction in that movie. Even Watchmen, they literally, set off atomic bombs and whatnot. But, I think that's one of the keys to Zack Snyder's directing is he's got to make it the most epic possible film that he can do, because he never does it half-ass. If you look at it, the epicness of his directing and the writers that came along with that too. And I guarantee you he's got his own set of writers that kind of write a lot of it, for him. But the epicness of it, that's what Zack Snyder's about, and that's what made it great because the visual. We talked about the audio, but really the visual and his idea of the visualness of these movies. And you had to have that in Superman. Yeah. And like you were saying, you understood that you had to have that. You thought there was a lot of extra, but it just showed how evil Zod was.
And not only that, but that's placed on Clark's shoulders as well. Because, he was the reason that they were there. And, he didn't do anything to prevent the damage. Not that he could have, but... I think that's all placed on shoulders. It's another thing that he has to deal with, just like what happens next, which is my second huge point of contention when I first watched this, is when he snapped Zod's neck and killed him at the end. We have these, Batman and Superman always have these rules, right? But do they really? Because, Batman let the Joker die in the first Batman, and
Superman literally punched Joker's heart out.
Well, and I'm talking just about the movies. Like in the very first Batman movie, he let the Joker die. In Batman Returns, Batman was putting bombs on people and throwing them and letting them blow up.
Harvey
they
Dent,
died.
He let Harvey Dent die. He really probably could have saved.
But he actually killed people. He put that in Batman Returns. He's putting bombs in, little silly.
Well, when they say
bombs.
Superman and Batman don't kill anybody, they probably don't directly, I mean, except for Batman, but what I'm saying is, I mean, Superman won't directly kill anybody. I mean, I'm sure that him going through one of those buildings and pretty much toppling the buildings just because his body went through it, because Zod shot him through it.
Except in Superman 2, whenever he turned them into regular humans and throw them down those huge chasms in the North Pole, if you remember that. That was another death. So I think the whole thing about making Batman and Superman have these rules where they don't kill somebody, there's
Maybe
not much
directly.
There's not much history for it.
Right.
It's been done in the past. But this is looking at year one, like we've been saying, and so maybe this is the reason that from now on, Superman will always try to find a way around killing somebody. And I like the scene now because it's a cool, when you're looking at themes of the movie, the whole movie, Clark, Kal-El, Superman, he's been trying to decide human Kryptonian. And a few minutes before this scene, he told Zod Krypton had its chance. So he's made his decision. And right there, that was like Zod making sure he made his decision. And you had a good point when we had talked about this as far as Zod.
Before
Zod's
we get into that, I got a counterpoint
fight
for you. Okay. Now, he killed Zod. He did kill Zod, right? And you're saying, okay, maybe he might not, kill anybody else after that fact. I don't believe that, because I feel like if somebody is as powerful as him or more powerful than Superman, and he is just destructive, Doomsday, for instance, the BVS, he killed Doomsday, killing himself at the same time. But I feel like, where the difference between Batman and Superman, Batman always finds a way to get whatever he wants done. If that's whether or not that's not killing anybody, or whatever. But Superman, I feel like if there's somebody as powerful as him or more powerful than him, I feel like he would resort to the same outcome.
So what you're saying is basically, he would never take a human life because they are and this sounds bad, but they are lesser than him. But if there's somebody that's on the same level of him that cannot be taken down and he's the only one that can.
Right.
Yeah, that does make sense. Protecting lower life forms as far as humans or whatever.
And that's
people that
kind of
can't
his
protect
job.
themselves.
Yeah, but I mean, if you really think about it though, that's the difference between him and Batman. Batman is the type of person that kind of, he thinks 10 steps ahead. Right. Superman, has... Batman doesn't think with
deals
feelings.
with the problems as they come down.
Batman don't think with feelings. He doesn't deal with feelings.
Yeah, in the comic books,
Superman
he
does.
Prepared for it. He found out all their weaknesses and had files on how to kill
and this is
destroy
every single adaptation of Batman or the Justice
League.
League.
End up getting in the wrong hands, and and then they get pissed at Batman for it. But let me ask you a question. What do you think Zod's mentality was at the end of the movie, at the end of the fight where they crash into the train station?
I believe Zod knew he was going to die. He knew that he had lost that fight. When they entered that train station, he knew he lost that fight. He knew that Kal-El, whether it be because
he wasn't strong enough.
He was younger. Kal-El was younger. Kal-El,
more
again,
more experience with his powers.
Not fighting so much, but I mean, if you notice, that fight wasn't about technicality. It was all about brute force. And I felt like Zod knew that his end was near, and a man that has no future, whether it be 15 minutes or 4 years down the road, if they have no future, they act differently. Zod is a very collective person. He collects himself. He's very he's got that military mind. He's very planning and whatnot. But I think Zod was at the end of his rope. He knew he was at the end of his rope. So, he became a desperate man at that point, and therefore he wanted to win in the end. He knew he was going to lose his life, but he wanted to win in the end.
And he knew that Kal-El didn't want to kill him.
Yes,
but he made him make a choice, right?
Yep.
And you've told me, you talked about this with me a while ago, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And I think what happened was Zod's obviously stronger, got more military experience, more fighting experience. He had mastered all the powers that Clark had. He was obviously stronger, a better fighter than Clark. But what's always been about Superman is his will.
Yes.
He has this extremely powerful and like almost uncorruptible or incorruptible
Right.
will. And that's, I mean, even if he's not strong enough, he becomes strong enough just
Yes,
through his will.
yes.
Not like he gets extra strength, but I mean, he just
Yeah.
has that. I mean, that's one of the most cemented things about Superman is his will, and I think
Right.
that's what Zod saw.
And being morally uncorruptible. That's Superman from the get-go, is that Superman has always been morally incorruptible. You cannot corrupt Superman. You can corrupt every single character, every single comic book character, whether it be Marvel or DC, but Superman. And I'm thinking that just because he's the OG of comic books, that
Modern day,
he's a
at least.
symbol. Superman has always been a symbol of hope and good and being morally incorruptible. Batman talks about it all the time. He basically says, Superman. I believe he even said in BVS that if Superman wanted to, he could rule the world. But Batman also knows that Superman will not do that. He will not be corrupted in that sense. Now, Zod knew that. Zod figured that out as well because of his military mind and able to think a couple steps ahead. He knew he was going to die, so his last effort was going to be to say, "Hey,
I'm going to take somebody out."
Yeah, I'm going to take somebody out, and why not the man that Jor-El's son? Who he didn't want Jor-El to win. He didn't want Clark to win. He didn't want the Earthlings to be superior in any shape or form. So he figured that if he could corrupt Superman at his last moment, that it would prove to Clark and Superman that do you see, these humans are not worth your time. They're not worth to be a part of them. They're meant to be led.
Yeah, because we never talked about Zod in this episode. We've talked about it before, but Zod would, like we said, all Kryptonians were created with certain attributes that made them productive, whether it's Zod as a general or Jor-El as a scientist. And so Zod was created to protect his people, and at whatever cost that is. So he's not necessarily a bad guy. He's a guy that's doing what it takes, all other races be damned, to protect his race, because that's what he was created. That's
and
all
his
he
own
knows.
vision. He wants to see his vision.
Yeah, that's his soul, and he even told Superman, "That's what you've my soul. That's what you've taken from me."
Yeah.
And so this whole movie, he's had this. He's been calm. He's been collected. This is his goal. When Superman sent everybody to the Phantom Zone and Zod was the only one left, Zod was like, "You've taken everything from me, my purpose. So now I'm going to take everything from you that you hold dear, and that makes you you." And that's these humans. But he's going to kill them. He's going to kill Superman first.
Yeah.
When he realized he couldn't do that, he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to take these humans from you, just like you've taken my people."
Because he wants to corrupt them.
Now you got to make a decision.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to take away your purpose. If you
Yep.
let these people die, then you let humans die. If you kill me, you've basically destroyed your entire race.
Yeah,
the last bit of your race.
Yeah, and we go back to the point of, as far as Superman's concerned, Kryptonians aren't his people anymore. They, and in a way, because he came here at such a young baby
I think that
age.
decision happened when he actually said Krypton had its chance, and he destroyed that ship, so there was no way to bring back
Earth.
Kryptonians.
Earth is his home now.
Right.
Earth. Krypton is. I mean, he's. I think he's more interested in Krypton, but Earth is his home.
Well, he always wants to know where he comes from.
Yeah.
But it's clear by the end of the movie that this whole movie he's been walking the line between Kryptonians and humans, and by the end of the movie he's made his choice, and that's what makes him that beacon.
Yep. And Zod wanted to take that away from him, and essentially, if you look at it deeply, Zod wanted to remove Jonathan Kent from him, because that's his backbone. That's
Wanted to take away the human in him.
Yes, that's Jonathan Kent and what he taught Clark is what made him human.
That's his morality.
And that's his morality. And so he wanted to essentially remove Jonathan Kent, but it just goes to show that somebody without any powers, somebody that, died at a somewhat early age, but was such a strong character, strongly created character, and when they created Jonathan Kent, he's just such a strong and such an important character.
He's not even around most of the time.
He's
but
not.
His essence, his morality is all over the place.
Yes, and he's such
through Superman.
Right, and it just goes to show that Zod had all these powers, but still Jonathan Kent was stronger than him.
So I mean, we've talked a lot about the different things in this movie. We've broken down a lot of things. The main point that we want to make is how layered this entire movie was, how good the script from David Goyer was, and Zack Snyder, and how well thought out this was. There was meaning, there was purpose behind it. I don't want to knock the Richard Donner or the Brian Singer movies
or a lot of these Marvel films.
Yeah,
really.
I don't want to, specifically the Superman ones, because I mean it was really good movies, and you could believe a man could fly and everything like that, but they weren't really layered. Lex had a plan that any James Bond villain would have had in Sinking California, and then now his desert real estate, he's able to sell it. That sounds like some kind of laughing, smirking Bond villain, whereas the motivations here and the character arcs that you took people through with every single character that was in here, it's so layered, so well layered, that a lot of people just saw it as like, this is dull. It's not bright enough. He's depressed. He's not depressed. This just isn't the Superman we know yet.
He's lost.
This is showing us how we get there.
Yeah, he really is a lost character for the first half of the film. I mean, he's just trying to find, like you said earlier, he's trying to find out who he is as a human. Even though he's not human, he's trying to find out who he is. And what he wants to be, and what not even what he wants to be, what he has to be, and I mean,
it's almost impossible for us to put ourselves in that situation too.
Right,
so maybe that's why it
turned
a lot of people off.
And let's one thing we've never really talked about. I mean, this will be a quick thing, but one thing we've never ever mentioned was the bar scene where he worked.
Right.
Okay. Those guys don't know him. I think he was even going by a false name. Nobody.
Joe.
He was a dishwasher. Okay, mind you, he could have destroyed those guys, destroyed them. Okay, and he was at a kind of a depressing point in his life. Yeah,
Still didn't know who he was.
He didn't know who he was. But that's the strength of having Jonathan Kent in him. That because even at his darkest moment, and being treated like garbage, where he could literally twist them, he could throw them up to the moon if he wanted to.
It was cool because there's like this one rare scene that you see Superman
quite childish
lose his cool, throw a temper tantrum, and completely destroy that guy's truck.
But he still was defending that woman.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, really when the guy pushes him, and like the guy pushes himself back because Superman doesn't move. Yeah, but I just love that, and it sounds like he's hitting metal.
Yeah, but you got to admit that was the turning point in the movie. It really was the turning point in the movie.
Well, and he had found out in that bar about where his ship was and everything like that. But I mean, that was one of those things in the movie. That was one of those. The reason he went and talked to that preacher is like, I don't know if humans can be trusted either, because they're just awful. That, and along with the kids that were bullying him, when he was like, he had his hand on that bar and he just bent it, he could have destroyed them. But So this movie is just so multifaceted, multi-layered. There's just so much to it. And if you actually stop and realize this isn't a Superman movie, this is how Superman became Superman. That movie. You don't just skip. You don't just have, okay, he came from Krypton, and now he's Superman.
Yeah, where all you're seeing is that maybe he, Martha Kent's sewing him a suit. And he's about to put it on, but I mean that's where you didn't
even get that in Richard Donner movie.
I know, and it's probably why we love this movie, but we also like Smallville, is because there's depth to it, and where a lot of Superman, even I gotta say Richard Donner did an amazing job.
Awesome,
did something that
I will never not love those movies, except for 3 and 4.
But there's no depth to those movies. There really wasn't. I mean, and again, if you notice nowadays,
not a lot of depth.
There's not a lot of depth. I mean, and they tended to throw some weird stuff in that, like going back in time, which Superman never really has ever been known to do.
I mean,
that.
Look at that climax, and compared, he turned back time compared to what we got, which is more realistic, more in line with what you would expect from Superman. Before we close this up, did you have any little nags?
Yeah,
I can tell you a couple of mine. Like I already talked to you once, a little bit too much destruction. Lois says Clark too much when she's talking to Superman.
Yeah.
When he flies away to go save his mother, she goes Clark. When she shows up at his house, she goes Clark. And I think there was one other, and there was a cop right there, and there was one other time she said Clark. So it's like the whole time I'm like, stop saying his name.
Yeah.
It's like there's a cop here, but he could talk to this person, that person. And the last one I had, it kind of has to do with that. There's too much evidence of Clark's identity.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I mean, that's my biggest problem in the whole movie is that Lois, I mean, being the world's best reporter, that's granted, but Lois has never found out who Superman was.
Yeah, you're telling me the CIA can't find this guy?
And the fact that
that probably happened over a couple weeks of her tracking
even
him
a couple
down.
weeks,
yeah, I know.
I mean,
that's
Lois has
still...
never, I mean, the only time Lois found out was because Clark Kent told her who he was.
Well,
you know?
but I mean, yeah, it's like in the show, I mean, she just tracked him down somewhat easily. At the end of the movie, he crashes the drone, and the General Swanwick says, "Are you effing stupid?" And he goes, "I know you're trying to find out where I hang my cape." And I'm like, so many people can tell you that. So many people. How have you not figured this out? I mean,
right.
You got little double dealings with the CIA agents.
The whole army shows up in Smallville. I mean, come on now. It's like...
The Kryptonians went to the Kent farm.
Yes.
They destroyed the Kent farm.
Yes.
What did they think they were there for? So, and then whenever Lois came up with the cop, Superman was sitting there talking to Martha, like, they're just sitting back and everything. Did nobody think to go question Martha about what he was talking about?
Put two and two together. The fact that they're in some random Kansas City, and Superman is doing everything in his power to protect that town, which is, why
what Kansas?
Why Kansas?
And then what did he say to General Swanwick at the end? He's like, "How do you know without you won't act against American interests?" He goes, "I grew up in Kansas, General." It's like, oh my God!
2 and 2 equals 7.
But like I said, those are nags. I mean, there's probably tons of superhero movies where you could be like, well, how do they not know that this person is that person?
It's like a filler for the movie.
Right. And then obviously there's the question of, okay, Clark Kent looks exactly like Superman. What do glasses do and everything, Christopher Reeve solved that pretty convincingly in his movies, but
actually Brandon Routh does a pretty good job in showing that as well.
I will say Brandon Routh, I give him credit because he wasn't trying to create a new Superman. He was trying to basically copy what Christopher Reeve did, and that was Bryan Singer's point. He wanted to make a sequel.
And the guy was a Superman fan. Brandon Routh is a Superman fan.
And so is Bryan Singer. I mean, he was supposed to do the third X-Men movie, and he left to go do Superman. But, the point was they wanted to make a sequel to Part 2 and pretend like 3 and 4 never happened. And he was supposed to be the Christopher Reeve. So he had that voice down. He did really good when, the way he said Lois and everything. But, it's just that movie was too much. I'll watch it for like the awesome airplane. When he saves the airplane breaking off, that was a pretty cool scene.
You're talking about Return?
Yeah, Superman Returns. Whenever he saves the airplane from crashing and stops it in the baseball field,
that was pretty cool.
That was a pretty cool scene and everything. And
I liked Lex. I liked who Kevin Spacey.
He's persona non grata nowadays, so I won't say anything about that.
Okay, I'll give you that. But as far as Lex, you believed him in that movie that he was a genius. Which Lex is. Lex is a genius. So.
Well, I hope we kind of gave you guys a little bit, different of an insight into this movie, Man of Steel. It wasn't a bad movie, and even the critics didn't think it was a bad movie overall. I think it's a 50-something, which is technically rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, but I mean it has a 75% audience score. I tend to listen to the audience more than the
Rotten
the critics.
Tomatoes.
Anyways.
I don't go off Rotten Tomatoes after they took off their rating system because
there's that whole politics involved.
And you know what? If just because
which we don't talk about on this show.
And you don't I know. But you don't want to satisfy you don't want to satisfy, you don't want to piss off one side or the other. But leave up the rating system. If it gets some horrible ratings, sorry for you. That's what happens. Now, if people are manipulating the rating system, then they made it change there. Right. But that's just my little rant for today.
Yeah, I think, this movie came out in 2013. There was already 5 Marvel movies at that point. So, people were expecting a certain type of movie, and they got this. And DC is this. DC is vastly different than Marvel. Stakes are higher, all that kind of stuff. I hope that we kind of showed you the different layers of it, and you could see the passion that we have for this movie. And maybe you look at the movie, pop it in, bring it up on Amazon, whatever, and look at it in a different light. Give it a chance if you haven't before, or just enjoy it even more if you already liked it. Again, if you guys want to get a hold of us, we're on Facebook, Instagram at the Post Credit Podcast. Our email is thepostcreditpodcast@gmail.com. On our next episode, we're going to have the host from Groundless. It's a Justified podcast. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a show called Justified. It's one of my top 3 favorite shows. And these guys do a podcast where they do a new episode for every episode of Justified. It's really good. These guys are really funny. I think they'll have a lot of insight on that.
And they love Justified. They love Justified. It's an amazing show. It really is. But it's we're just me and Matt are just impatient people, and we just can't. It's like ADD with it when it comes to movies and TVs. We got to cover it all.
Right. So we heard these guys' podcast. We really want to talk to them. So stay tuned for that. Look out for that. We'll have that out after this episode sometime next week. And we appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you next time.
Throw me a bang.